Welcome to Story Hour, a virtual meetup hosted by Wolf and Heron.
One of the main reasons that I chose Tufts University was its study abroad program. So when I was 19 years old, I signed up for a summer program in France, and this program put me in a charming city surrounded by mountains and on the edge of a lake. And during my time there, I would be taking classes and living with a French family and another student from my school, Erica. When Erica and I arrived to the house the first day, we met Madame. Madame welcomed us into her home, and she's speaking in French. She shows us around the house where we'll be staying. She talks to us about a few important details for our stay. Eric and I speak some French. We've been taking French. So with some work, she's able to communicate that the town has very delicate plumbing. And so we should be quite careful about that. And we then end up in the kitchen. And as part of the study abroad, Madame and her family are going to be hosting all of our meals. So it makes sense that she asks us if we have any food restrictions. In full disclosure, I'm a picky eater. And I'm definitely, though I'll say better now than I was at 19. But there is a long list of things that I didn't like to eat. That said, French to English, I wait, and Erica shares, she's Jewish, she shares that she doesn't eat pork. And so I decide I'm only going to say one thing. And so I share with Madame, I don't eat tomatoes. In fact, tomatoes give me the gag reflex, and I avoid uncooked tomatoes at all costs. That night, we sit down with Madame and her family and Monsieur, the two teenage boys, as we talk in stilted French. They know no English. We slowly get to know each other. And the family shares that they actually take students every summer. And at the end of the summer, they take them out to this fancy restaurant on the lake with a view of the mountains and like the lights sparkling everywhere. And it's this beautiful finale to the whole summer. And meanwhile, I'm in France for summer abroad and looking forward to a very magical summer. It's a bit awkward because of the jet lag and the language barrier, but this is just going to be amazing. What could be better? I'm so looking forward to eating Nutella crepes and doing so much more in France. And throughout our stay, Erica and I make our way back and forth from the house to the village, to the school, and occasionally we hang out with or coexist with Madame, Monsieur, and the two teenage boys. I remember there were a few odd moments. There was one night when we accidentally set off the fire alarm. I don't really know why. And then there was when my parents were visiting, and we discovered actually that they did speak English very well. And we had misunderstood or been misled, I don't know, that they did not speak any English. What became very clear was that by the end of the summer, we had not established the close bond that other families had with their students. And so our last night with the family, again, we were seated on the patio at their house. And Madame approaches the table and comes up and leans forward and looks at Erica and I. And she says, "Tonight for dinner, we have tomatoes stuffed with pork. One of you can eat the inside and the other one can eat the outside. Or would you like me to heat up in the microwave some frozen croque monsieur? What would you like?" And as I ate that croque monsieur, I felt hot, uncomfortable, a sort of confused shame. I didn't really feel like talking, but we must have. Or maybe Erica and I just tried to follow their very fast speaking French. I don't remember talking to Erica about what happened, but I must have. It was just very uncomfortable. Something was missing from that experience. We or I had failed to communicate or understand and I didn't know enough or feel enough or care enough to do anything about it. So today, sometimes I describe myself as being pro-conflict. Actually, Stephanie would say it's better to describe as pro-conflict resolution. But I really, really, really don't like to leave things hanging. What's the point? I'm not often in situations right now where there's a literal language barrier, but there are often communication challenges and cultural differences. And I've discovered that it's worth pursuing them and prodding at them and trying to work through them. It's worth getting below the surface.
Okay, yay, Kara! Thank you for your story. Why don't we start with what was great about Kara's story? What should she hold on to as she continues to develop it?
I'll make one observation that in spite of reading, I thought she held eye contact and visual connection to the audience remarkably well. It's all modulated, of course, by this Zoom thing, which is a bit new to me and a bit new to everyone. And the camera and the eyes are out of line, but I thought her presence on Zoom, at least, was quite good.
Good. What else? Milo, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think that Kara is quite personable. It sounds like this story is something that's close to her heart, and it also, I think, is very relatable. So even for people who have not gone abroad, I'm sure that they've had interactions with foreigners who can't speak English. I thought it was particularly funny that they didn't express to you or didn't tell you that they spoke English. So I think that was a huge opportunity to introduce that in a way that was a little bit more interesting. And I guess we could talk about that later, but I think that the story had a lot of different ingredients that could be very, very both engaging, relatable, and memorable.
Anyone else? Something else Kara should hold on to?
Really good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stephen.
Sorry. Okay, so there's two things that set up suspense in this story, and one was the allergy or disaffection for tomatoes, which got established at the beginning, and then we had a lot of incidents, and it came back and revealed itself at about 80%. That helped sustain my interest. I kept wondering when this was going to come back to bite us and what anecdote it was going to generate. The other thing was the discovery that they didn't speak English, or they did speak English, which was a suspenseful element, at least as much as the tomatoes, but it was unresolved. I was expecting some sort of confrontation or some sort of moral, or that's not quite the word, but a lesson at the end saying these people were trying their best to get us fully immersed in French, and they specifically went to a lot of effort not to speak English. But that never came to an end.
Molly, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you talk about, I think there's an element of like, I was predicting that the tomatoes would come back up sort of the way they did, but the way you told it was very, very good. So that in spite of the predictability, I like felt it happen the way you told it. So I think you did a good job engaging emotion there.
All right, what about things that Kara can play with in terms of experimentation or opportunities to try other things to make the story more powerful? Go ahead, John.
I think that using more sensory language or like visceral language would bring me more into your experience. Like, did you feel yourself blushing? Did your, like, at times that were uncomfortable, did you feel like tension in your stomach or your shoulders? Did you feel your face turn hot? And then another thing that would be interesting to explore is a lot of times we have experiences in life that are very uncomfortable or frustrating or funny, you know, positive or negative, but then there's this elapsed time and we step across this threshold and we might come to view a situation that was really frustrating or awkward with like a sort of humorous detachment, like something that really pissed you off at the time that it happened becomes funny after a certain amount of time, or maybe it's still frustrating to think about, but there's at least an element of detached humor to it as well. That would be that might be an interesting thing to explore.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Milo.
Sounds good. Okay, so Kara, I think that like I said in the beginning, the ingredients are all there. As Stephen said, you even kept them in suspense after the story was finished. But I think that the way that it was organized kind of took away from the emotional impact that you can make when you're speaking. So as an example of that, when you introduced the tomatoes, I feel like it would have made more sense to introduce it closer to when the actual action happens, because when you introduced it in the beginning and then you had the story in between, I was like, where did that piece of information go and why was it relevant? Like, was it just something that they had a preference for and they were weird? Like, what was it describing? So if you brought it up right to the beginning and then again used sensory language like John said, you could be like, yeah, then they brought out this platter, it smelled delicious, and we looked and it was these red lumps, and we're like, what is this? Turns out they're tomatoes, but not only that, they were filled with pork. So like, you know, kind of like incredulous. So again, like the organization, I think, would communicate the story better because there is so many different elements to it. Another thing is maybe introduce the speaking English bit with a different hook. So rather than say, it turns out that they were able to speak English the entire time, I feel like that is the perfect opportunity to like narrate a conversation you're having with them and then maybe have them respond in English and see if the audience catches on and be like, yeah, actually what they said was in English. And it turns out they could speak English this entire time. So when we were talking about them in front of them, it turns out they were listening to everything we were saying. And that kind of, I think, can get the audience, you know, kind of like engaged, like, really? Did that really happen? And give the personality to the characters in your story a lot more depth and creativity, and demonstrate that they're these malicious little, you know, people in a foreign country that do this on purpose to teach students to come over a lesson and how to speak English better. Anyway, I think that the story was great. Like I said, if you develop this story, it sounds like it definitely could be something that catches people's attention.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Hit me.
I think I want to flog you with one of your superpowers.
Yes.
And that's the pick one theme issue. You started off, the very first sentence mentioned Tufts. And I thought Tufts was, right away, I thought Tufts was going to be the major theme of this whole talk. It never came back. It was just a throwaway. But it shouldn't. Your opening sentence should tell me what the theme's going to be, rather than lead me astray. Also, there were a bunch of elements here that were just kind of recountings of the progress of the summer that didn't come up didn't really pertain to the food story or the English story.
Yeah.
Or the communications story. So there's three stories you have that were elemental. And then there's the students every summer who go out to a restaurant thing, and there's incidents on the patio, and the croque monsieur, and Erica. Well, Erica's part of the story. She has to be there. But I thought you had more elements or potentially more themes than certainly more than one.
Yeah.
And there was no large binding theme that naturally included all these things.
Okay.
We always talk about how pick one theme is the hardest of the four to do and how hardest to do well. So, and that's always part of the work, I think. I liked the detail about delicate plumbing, but I think also that one doesn't fit your theme.
Yeah.
Right.
You can strip it out. There's lots of moments, and that just, that'll come. Any last thoughts before we move on? Go ahead. One more from Milo. Go ahead.
I just want to say, participating in this from the very beginning and having you guys, so I always want to say to everybody, you guys are amazing coaches. I have significantly improved, but I think this specifically demonstrates how hard it is to create a 5-minute story, because you suddenly realize how many tangents you're going on. And you're like, I need all this other relevant information for this to make sense. And then you find yourself lost in your own story. So I just wanted to say, Kara, that's an amazing job. And as a coach, you are an incredible person. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we thought might come out in the course of this session, doing a Coach the Coaches session, would be something about how hard this process is. And it is something that we all have to work on very intentionally all the time. Visit wolfandheron.com to find out more about our story hours.